Good afternoon, you wee bastards, and welcome back to German Suffering Simulator with Koala. Wow guys, 2 War Thunder videos in a row. It's been a while since we saw that on the channel, hasn't it? So today we're going to be talking about the proposed new ground forces battle ratings coming to the game soon. Yesterday we covered the new aircraft BRs, so if you haven't seen that video, please do go check it out. I'll leave a link on screen and in the description as always. But to go through all these standard disclaimers, this is going to be my assessment of the new BRs subject to my own personal opinions and experiences. They are not necessarily finalised and could be changed. This video is mostly for entertainment, so if I seem a wee bit harsh, that doesn't mean I condone being aggressive towards Gaijin, it's just for a laugh. And as always, we are going to only be talking about realistic mode. We'll still get complaints, won't we? Anyway, there aren't quite so many changes coming to ground forces battle ratings as there are to aircraft, so this video is going to be a wee bit shorter, but what I will say before we get started on battle ratings, something I think I forgot to mention in the aircraft video, there are also some economy changes coming at the same time regarding the costs of modules for high tier vehicles, so I'll leave a link down to the original post down in the description if you want to go check them out and have a look at the new BRs without being subject to my rambling for 15 minutes. What I will say is that, well done, Gaijin. You haven't decompressed shit. 10.0 is still the ceiling. Gaijin steadfastly refuses to admit that maybe the Leopard 2A5 is slightly more effective than the Leopard 2A4. The M1A1 might be a wee bit of an improvement on the M1. No differences whatsoever, I'm sure. Seriously, and as I said in the last video, I threw some shade at Gaijin for placing the rank 7 tanks at the same BR ceiling 10.0 rather than putting them all in at 10.3 and ironing out the BRs, adding in a 10.7, maybe even an 11.0 at a later date. And the response I got is that I was being cancerous for complaining and that Gaijin always does this. They did it in 1.77 with the Abrams and T-64B. Those tanks sat at the existing BR ceiling for a week or two before moving up. I believe the MBT, KPZ-70 and T-64A from 1.71, those tanks did too. And that if I just waited instead of being toxic, apparently, the Gaijin would move the top tier tanks up this time too. So it's been 4 months, and apparently Gaijin didn't get that memo. What an absolute failure. It was high time you addressed the placeholder battle ratings of rank 7, but nope, you'd rather just give us token moves and some new overpowered premiums, and then just hope we all forget about it. Well, I'm not going to. How about you lads? Now, hopefully Gaijin proves me wrong, and that by the time these changes come to the live server, some top tier decompression has actually been added in, because I'm not the only one creating a backlash. Right now, no word on any actual worthwhile fixes to top tier. Gaijin would rather we all forgot about it. That I see as insulting. Now, it might sound like I'm really kicking up a stink about this, but considering that is literally the only way we seem to be able to effect change in this game, well, if that's what I gotta do, then Guy Jesus give me strength. So let's just get right into this. The first move on our list is the T-3457 Premium, which is going from 4.7 down to 4.3. Makes sense as the only difference between this tank and its tech tree counterpart is an APCR shell, and I think we can all agree that balancing based on APCR rounds is stupid. Nobody fires them anyway. The Su-85 is also going down, which is something I really like. I want to do a video on this topic soon, but tank destroyers really don't see the effectiveness that they did IRL because, well, there's no infantry in this game, therefore everything is a tank destroyer. Having the 85mm gun and some pretty decent armor down at battle rating 4.3 is going to be very nice, give you more of a reason to want to take that thing out, even though it's a casemate, which I feel like most people just have in their lineup as a backup for an equivalent vehicle that has, you know, a turret. The Su-85M is now moving down from 5.3, which I find a bit strange. There's really not much reason to take that thing out over a T-3485 D5T, because it has, well, the same armor, the same mobility, the same gun, and a turret. As such, the ISU-122 is going down to 5.3, something I'm very excited for because I love my 5.3 Russian lineup. The IS-1, the T-3485, the D5T, PT-76. It'll be really nice once again to have a nice big fuck-off sized anti-tank cannon and some respectable armor there as well. The fact that the ISU-122 and the IS-2 with the same cannon but a rotating turret both sat at the same BR, yeah, that never made any sense to me, so I do like this change. The ISU-122S is also going down. Now, what's special about this tank is that it has, I believe, the fastest reload on a 122mm. It's something like 15 seconds fully aced, which is incredible. And at 5.7, complementing the T-3485, IS-2, the KV-122, maybe the T-5, the Russian Panther, that'll be very nice indeed. One existing issue with the ISU-122S is that it never had a lineup to be put in, and you can't really have a casemate as your primary vehicle, so moving the ISU-122S down into a lineup that is ready to receive it should help it to be played out a lot more, and I always like seeing more variety on the battlefield, so that's a big thumbs up from me. I did rant just a minute ago about the lack of top tier changes, but I will always give credit to Gaijin where it's due, and right here, it is. In keeping with the trend of Soviet case-made tank destroyers being down-tiered, the Su-122-54 is moving down from 7.3 to 7.0. And this is a really interesting vehicle. It's a case-made TD on the T-54 chassis with an upgraded 122mm D-49 cannon that's basically a halfway between the older Russian D-25T and the T-10M's M62. It has a 400mm penetrating heat FS as well as an APDS no one uses, and a decent 230mm pen on its APC-BC shell. It's fairly mobile and has an extremely quick reload. I take back what I said on the ISU-122S, this tank actually reloads the 122 even faster. I believe it's under 14 seconds fully aced, which is insane. What interests me about this move is that the Object 268 isn't also moving down, even though in my opinion the Su-122-54 is definitely the better tank destroyer at 7.3. The Object 268 is a massive bulky thing, does have good armour and a relatively quick reload for its 152mm cannon of only around 22 seconds, but it has quite a low penetration for a tank destroyer of that tier, only 228mm and 250mm on a heat shell. Not a heat FS, a good old-fashioned heat. Now this is very strange when you consider that the Object 120 Tehran at a single step above that has an APFSD shell with over 400mm penetration and a heat FS with 480. Now I will always say that the Object 120 should be at least 8.0 if not 8.3, it's an absolute joke that that thing fights King Tigers. I mean, it has an auto-loading long barrel 152mm with an APFSDS better than the Abrams, good mobility, a fully traversing turret, and a heat FS with 480mm at any range. That's an 8.3 vehicle. Of course, that one's not moving up with these changes. Like I said in the last video, the Tehran is one of the most overpowered premiums in the entire game, and apparently Gaijin isn't keen on changing that. The Object 268, however, has a rather lackluster gun to even the Su-122-54, and yet it remains at 7.3. I feel like everybody kind of sees the Object 268 as a bit shit. It's more of a meme than a competitive tank destroyer. It does have very good armor, but so does the Yak Tiger, and the Yak Tiger has much better penetration. So I feel like the Object 268 should definitely be moving down to at least 7.0, but the Object 120 should go up, for God's sake. How many years has it been since that thing's been ruining King Tigers and lol pinning the mouse from any range? What's also not happening is that the Chieftains are still going to be useless as shit. Now, I'm not going to go too in-depth here about what should happen with top-tier battle ratings, mainly because I've done it what seems like 50 times now, and Gaijin has clearly demonstrated that they don't give a shit about actually balancing top-tier. Apparently top-tier exists only for hype and to sell 8.7 premiums. But if you want a demonstration of what I'm talking about, then do me a favour. Go play the Leopard L44, AMX-30 Super or Type 74G, and then compare them to the Chieftain Mark V at the same battle rating. I'll wait. Did you come to the conclusion that it's balanced? If you said yes, then go drink some water, go lie down with a damp cloth on your forehead, and rest easy for a few days, because something is very wrong with you. Anyway, the AMX-13 Hot is being moved down once again to now 8.7, something I don't really agree with, because the AMX-13 Hot is just a Raketen Jagdpanzer II Hot with the addition of a 75mm cannon, powerful enough to kill any top-tier MBT from the side, and a fully rotating turret. Sure, it only has 6 missiles while the German tank destroyer has 20, but it's already one step below the German vehicle. It doesn't need to be 2. The regular AMX-13 is also going up from 6.0 to 6.3. Now, this is just one plain old stupid move. Kind of like the Yak 30's move up that I talked about in the last video. It's completely unnecessary, nonsensical. The AMX-13 isn't even that great at 6.0. With the improved scouting mechanics I talked about a few days ago, I still said 6.0 is the right place for it. Seriously, Gaijin staff must have just gotten home from the vodka and hard bass appreciation parade when they decided on this one, because it is really odd. Both the American T-32 heavy tanks are moving up, the regular one going from 7.0 to 7.3, and the E1 going from 7.3 to 7.7. Now, this once again seems really stupid to me. Sure, they are very good heavy tanks, but The T32E1 is obviously inferior to the M103, which already is nowhere near as good as it used to be and still sits at 7.7. The T32s just don't need to be moved up. They're good, but not that good. If you're complaining that you can't penetrate them frontally with APC-BC shells, well, they're heavy tanks. Also, Jagdtiger, anyone? Makes no sense, I don't like it, they are absolutely fine where they are, they should be able to bounce shells, they are designed specifically for that purpose, and good fucking luck fighting 105mm APFSDS on the Type 74, an AMX-30 Super, or even the fucking 120mm L44 cannon on a Leopard Premium in a T32. The issue with the Jagdtiger is that it faces too many Cold War tanks with high penetrating heat FS and APFSDS for it to really function properly the way it's supposed to be able to, the way it used to be able to. Well, that exact same issue befalls the T32s and the M103 too, so while I admit the T32s are quite powerful, so they should be. They're still heavy tanks, they still play like heavy tanks, and they are very vulnerable. They fight plenty of opponents that can easily penetrate them frontally, like the SU-122-54. And if the Jagdtiger gets to move down, then there is no reason whatsoever to move these two heavies up. They're perfectly fine where they sit, always have been, haven't been causing any issues by being overpowered. For the love of God, Gaijin, please leave them alone. Now, a couple of Italian World War II vehicles are moving down. I don't think anybody really cares too much about that. The M26 Pershing with the APCR is moving down, just like the T-3457 Premium, because, you know, APCR doesn't erase the battle rating of a tank. And the Hetzer is moving down in BR. Should actually be really competitive now. The Hetzer's a bit of a weird vehicle. It is quite good, but it's still seen as a bit of a meme for no readily apparent reason. The German KV-1 with the 75mm gun is moving down, which I think is perfectly fine. I don't see them on the battlefield too often, which suggests that people don't find them worth buying. The only thing is that it doesn't really have a lineup besides the Brummbär and Ostwind. But anyway, let's get on to the big controversial change that's got everyone up in arms. The Tiger H1 and the Furry Tiger are going down from 5.7 down to 5.3. And the Jagdtiger is going from 7.0 down to 6.7. Oh my god, the Germany suffers crowd finally won. They're getting their wonder tanks down-tiered. Gaijin's pandering. Would you believe me if I said that this is one change I am actually completely fine with? Let's go into this in detail, because I know people are talking about this, so let me just get down my own opinions. And if you want to call me autistic in the comments, then you guys feel free. Hope it makes you feel better. Now, the Tiger H1 is a perfectly adequate heavy tank at battle rating 5.7. It's often a player-borne issue that causes it to perform poorly. You see a lot of Tiger H1 drivers not angling, not using their tanks correctly, and not using a proper lineup, and the standard response seems to be that this is because it can be researched as a player's very first tier 3. You can play the Tiger H1 when your previous highest tier vehicle is the battle rating 3.0 Panzer IIIM. But the thing is, that is also true about the abundance of premium vehicles that can be found across the nations at every tier. So I don't see this as being a good enough reason to say the Tiger 1 is performing poorly. It's also barely any difference to the Tiger E, which is staying at 5.7. It has the more powerful engine, but the difference is 50 horsepower. Now you might think, okay, that's significant enough, but it's not. See, the engine achieves an extra 50 horsepower at and from 3000 RPM, which the Tigers can never reach. They shift up at 2750. So the difference is actually more like 35 horsepower, which equates to no more than 4 kilometers per hour difference. Now, I've spoken about the Chieftains in the past, and what I'll say is that the extra 7 kilometers per hour of the Mark V does not noticeably improve it over the Mark III, and they should have the same battle rating. So the Tiger H1 and Tiger E definitely should, because the difference is even less. What it mainly allows you to do is reverse and turn at the same time better than the H1 can. Besides that, there is no real difference. I mean, the Cupola is one, but I never get shot there. They have basically the same armor, same reload rate, and the Tiger E has a 10% better turret traverse. That's it. None of these are enough of an upgrade, even together, to warrant a BR difference. So the fact that the H1 is going down and the E is not, makes little sense. So what do I think should happen? Leave the H1 at 5.7 where it is currently? Prevent it from seeing KV-1Bs and T-14s? I mean, at this new battle rating, it'll be the same BR as the T20, A30 Challenger, M4A3 76mm Sherman, the EZ8 as it's known, and the AC4 Thunderbolt. But I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't care. You see, this game has long progressed past the point where the armour of the Tiger 1 is something I see as threatening at its own battle rating. Everything can reliably penetrate a Tiger, even frontally, which I don't like. Hell, even some battle rating 2.3s can penetrate the Tiger frontally. But if you're not angling properly and being reckless, then you should be penetrated for that, that's perfectly fine. But you still will be at 5.3 because that's the BR of the M18 Hellcat, which can lol pen the Tiger's frontal plate easily. I just don't see the Tiger as being threatening because of its armour. I see the 88mm cannon as threatening, sure, but nothing about that changes at 5.3, and when I'm driving the Tiger H1, I don't feel confident that I'm not going to be penetrated even when I am angling correctly. There's just too much shit that's been added that renders armour redundant. The Yak Tiger is the exact same. I see it moving down to a BR where it'll be slightly more capable of, I guess, relaxing, and knowing that its armour is going to actually work. The biggest issue with the Yak Tiger's move is that the German 6.7 lineup is fucking powerful enough. They have the best light tank, medium tank, SPAA, close air support, and now best tank destroyer at that tier as well, and that's just not good balance. But the Yak Tiger isn't the cause of that problem. What needs to happen is that the RU-251 needs to be up tiered to 7.3, that's where it belongs, and the Panther 2 could probably go back up as well. Although maybe it shouldn't be as high as the M46, but we'll get into that later. But I am really not fazed by the Yak Tiger's move, because there'll still be a lot of shit that it faces that can penetrate it, and let's be honest, 6.7 gets up tiered to 7.7 quite a lot anyway, so its matchmaker won't even change that much. One thing I do really want to draw attention to is that the Yak Tiger has a pretty big shot trap, so just aim directly underneath the gun at that small term, and you should be able to splash down into the hull and take it out. Remember that, because you're going to be facing it with your T-3485s and T-25s in the US tree, Centurion Mark 1s, ARL-44s, and several other vehicles that will be used to fighting the Yak Tiger. The Yak Tiger is just a souped up Ferdinand when it comes down to it, a very well armoured, very slow, casemate tank destroyer with a big fuck off gun. And given how significantly War Thunder has been power creeped over the last 2 years, I have no issue with them moving down to a point where their armour becomes more likely to actually save them once in a while. I mean, the Tiger fights T-29s every game these days, and the Yak Tiger fights mostly Heat FS and even APFSDS. This move down will be good for them because it will actually put them back into the role that they're meant for. They will actually be able to be confident of surviving shells rather than just being lol-penned. Now, I understand why all of you lads who don't like this change don't like it, and it's nothing to do with the new BRs of the vehicles themselves. It's to do with the BRs that they can fight. 5.7 tanks like those I mentioned earlier will be fighting Yak Tigers with 128mm cannons and insanely strong armour. 4.3s like the T-14 or Sherman Calliope will be fighting against Tigers, they never had to do that before. But equally, the Tiger H1 will never have to fight T-29s and Centurion Mark 3s or Batchats that just render its armour completely useless. Honestly, my biggest gripe about this is that it's not consistent. I mean, I already did my piece on why the Tiger E should be the same battle rating, but why is the Japanese Tiger, the heavy tank number 6, not moving down? I mean, that thing has an even less powerful engine than the Tiger H. I also think, as I said, that this game has been power creeped significantly, and even BR 4.7, we have tanks like the M4A4 Sherman that can penetrate the Tiger H1 frontally from 2,000 meters away. What I believe is that alongside the Tiger H1's moving down, other heavy tanks should go down too, so that they have less chance of fighting as many vehicles that can lol-pen their armour. Heavy tanks are lumbering beasts. They rely on being able to show some knee and know that they won't just be easily penetrated. I did see one post a little while ago saying that the armour of heavy tanks is not supposed to constantly bounce shells, but rather act as a deterrent, making enemies have to spend more time aiming in order to ensure that they hit the weak spots where they'll penetrate. And I don't necessarily agree with either of those two standpoints. No, heavy tanks should not be able to just wade into hordes of enemies without thinking, bouncing every shell that comes their way. Not even in a down tier should they be able to do that. But the armour also should be more than just a deterrent, and currently, for most heavy tanks, It's not. Even light tanks at your battle rating have no trouble at all penetrating you frontally. Above battle rating 5.0, even in the heaviest of heavy tanks, there is no guarantee that you won't be lol-penned, even when you're down-tiered. There really is very little armor meta in this game anymore. It used to be just that there was no armor meta at top tier, as we always said. But these days, there's no armor meta at tier 3 either. I can drive around in my light tanks knowing that I can lol-pen literally anything I come up against. Heavy tanks are just bigger targets. This is something that's specifically come to my attention since playing World of Tanks. That's right, I play World of Tanks. In that game, for all its flaws, and there are a lot of them, armor is a significant thing. If you're in a heavily armored tank, you are going to soak a lot of shots. Even the ones that do manage to find a spot where they can penetrate you, you have a lot of HP in a heavy tank. Now obviously World of Tanks is not nearly as immersive as War Thunder. We don't have HP in ground vehicles. Yes, we do have it for aircraft and ships, calm down. But I want heavy armor to mean something again in this game. In World of Tanks, even medium tanks can bounce a lot of shells, and heavy tanks often can't be penetrated by light tanks of their tier, even from the sides. Now that's obviously not realistic, and I am definitely not saying that I want War Thunder to turn into World of Tanks. I don't want that at all, but yeah, I have no problem with these moves because it will make my heavy tanks feel like actual tanks again. They'll be able to bounce shells reliably. They will still see a lot of stuff that can penetrate them. They are not becoming brainless to play, bouncing everything. Even in their new max down tiers, they'll be penetrated pretty easily by some of the vehicles. They just have a higher chance of actually bouncing on average, which very few heavy tanks above tier 2 actually do these days. This is why I hate the T-32s moving up. I don't agree with that at all. What I think is that these moves, the Tiger and Jagdtiger going down, are test beds, kind of like April Fool's events. I think Gaijin wants to collect data on how well they do, whether or not they become overpowered, and then next time there's a BR rework, we'll see the King Tigers go down because they have completely lost their crowns, they never bounce anything anymore. We'll see the Jumbos go back down, they never seem to settle, do they? We'll see the KVs and ISs go down, and a lot of vehicles that rely specifically on thick armor rather than mobility or versatility. The Tortoise, for example, in the British tech tree. That's something that I actually do like the sound of. Armored vehicles actually having some armor. I do have some issues with specifically what is moving and what isn't. For example, the French tank destroyer, the 5.7 ARL-44, is not going down. I feel like it should. It's not really that good. And the Panther D is not joining the Tiger H at 5.3. The Jumbos are not going down, the AC-4 isn't going down because that thing doesn't really bounce shells very frequently anymore. None of the American, Russian or British heavy tanks are going down. And if the Yak Tiger is going down, then why are the T-95 and the Tortoise not going down too? As well as the Object 268 I mentioned earlier. What I feel like would be better is the exact same thing I suggested in the last video. We need some in-between battle ratings for tanks that are either slightly overpowered but shouldn't they be moving up, or tanks that are slightly over-tiered but should they really be going down, kind of like the 75mm Jumbo. We need battle ratings to be spaced out, like I said last time, and like so many people, including me, have said so many times before. Even when I forget about the relative failure of Gaijin not raising the top tier battle rating ceiling, this group of moves is still a failure because it's sweeping an issue under the rug and hoping that we'll all shut up about it. Well lads, I implore every single one of you, do not just meekly shut up about this. Get on it Gaijin, tell them what we want if this is something that you want. We want them to completely overhaul the battle ratings and space them out for tanks at all tiers, moving top tier up to 11.0, 12.0, even 14.0, spacing out every tank in between and creating a much better balance in the game. Spitflyer did a video just yesterday where he talked about this. I mentioned it in my M46 video from a couple of months ago, but we need Gaijin to basically go back to the drawing board and string along every single tier of vehicles to space them out. The more we space out tanks like the heavies that can't reliably bounce shells anymore, like the main battle tanks that, sure they have no armor, but they render everyone else's armor redundant too. The more space we create, the better balanced the game is. So here's my penultimate suggestion. This Christmas update, don't make it a big one like you usually do. Make it the smallest one of the year. Give us 2 or 3 new tanks and aircraft, maybe a new ship or a new map or something. but make the workload easy on yourselves. Don't add very much, and then rather than give us a massive update to tie us over to next year, use that time to go back and completely overhaul the battle rating spread of ground forces and decompress the game. Not only does this better balance tanks, but it allows for future aircraft like the F-4 Phantom to be supporting tanks like, for example, the MBT-70 rather than the M1A2, for example, and preventing there being such a massive gap in the time frames, which has resulted in jets from the early 50s being shot down by SAM systems from the 80s and 90s. You'll make the game more fun, without a doubt, and even though no one will pay you for it like they would for a new premium, you will improve this game tenfold, and that people will pay for in time. Honestly, the move out of all of these that I have the biggest problem with is that the Stura Emil will now be moving down to 5.0. That means a 128mm tank destroyer with some of the best gun depression in this game will sit lower than the Panzer 470V, a casemate with a 75mm gun. I think it should not just stay at 5.3, but probably move up to 5.7. I know nobody plays it, but that's because Gaijin's map design doesn't give it a way to make use of that amazing gun depression and make it a unique vehicle. I have a problem with how strong German 6.7 is about to get, as if it wasn't strong enough already, but as for the individual tanks moves, the Tiger and Jagdtiger, I have no issue whatsoever, because these vehicles, I just want their armor to matter again, like it did back in 2015 before we power creeped the shit out of this game. Back when the T10M was the best tank in the entire game, and it didn't even have a stabilizer yet. This is the problem where Gaijin has added so much shit to this game so rapidly that they're now presented with a problem where the game has so radically changed from the one that they originally designed that they just do not know how to properly handle it anymore. This game used to be quote-unquote about Tigers fighting T-34s and Shermans. These days it's about M1A1 Abrams fighting T-80Us and Leopard 2A5s with AH-1Fs and Mi-24s and Stormers surface-to-air missile systems. We used to say that the mere thought of ATGMs like the IT-1 were ultimate cancer. Back in those days, it was evident that love was put into the development of this game, that the developers created it because they really had a dream and they wanted to see it fulfilled. These days, it just feels like Gaijin's treating it as a product, that it's no longer a labour of love. If this move, the Tiger and Jagdtiger, brings back a sense of armor meta because they'll no longer fight as many tanks with 150 more millimeters penetration than they have armor, then I'll be all for it. I'll say move all the heavies down, bring back the tankiness that we used to know, make M103s feel like the IS-6 used to 2 years ago, down-tier the jumbos, move the mouse down amongst other World War II tanks so that it can be a beast and not just a meme. Bring back the tank game that I fell in love with back in 2014, when it wasn't easy to penetrate a heavy tank from the front, and you had to use teamwork to take out a Tiger, because it was a beast and its armor really was tough to tackle. Since then, we've added so many glass cannons that have to sit so low in the battle ratings because in every other regard they are a bit shit. The game has no longer become about armor. Armor is nothing most of the time in War Thunder. If these moves fix that, go right ahead, Gaijin. But what I would like a million times more is a proper decompression of the battle ratings, where we can have World War II tanks like the M26 Pershing at a battle rating 8.0 alongside 1940s jets. I'll even forget my lust after the F-104 Starfighter if Gaijin would just spend the time and effort on redoing the entire BR spread for ground forces. You'll make more money in the long run by improving the game and adding the quality of life improvements, bug fixes, and improving map design, putting love into this game again, than selling overpowered premiums ever will. Oh, and move the BR ceiling up above 10.0. So as of recording this commentary, I have just worked it out. The Tiger H is going down, not because it faces too many tanks that penetrate it, but because it doesn't have the Tiger E's APCR shell. That's literally the reason. So you finally down-tiered the M26E1 and T3457 premiums because you acknowledge that the presence of the APCR does not make them more powerful tanks, but the Tiger is going down because it lacks APCR. For fuck... Of course, you know, we're all forgetting the most significant move of all, though. This thing's going down to 1.0. Anyway, lads, that is going to be it for this video. I just had to put a bit of a laugh in at the end there because we got a wee bit emotional there, eh? Please leave a like on this video if you did enjoy, subscribe and hit that notification bell, join the 360 squad, and make sure, as always, to let me know all of your thoughts down in the comments section below. Look, I know I complain and criticise a lot, but I do it because I absolutely love this game, and I hope you guys will share my wishes for improvements to this game, because it could be so much better than it is right now. Make sure you come follow me on Twitter and Twitch, join the Discord, and check out Patreon or hit the join button here on YouTube if you wish to support the channel further. Thank you lads all so much for watching, have a lovely good day, and I shall see you in the next video. I say a wee thank you to these lads for supporting me on Patreon. Captain Thubar, DA261, Gisli Gadarsson, and Dark Recon. You lads are bra. If you wish to join them, come check out the link in the description below.